to Love and the Planets, and we're looking at the week of April 23rd, and I'm Margaret Gray in a very sunny Dublin. I think summer has come at last.
And I'm Armand Diaz, where it's springtime warm, but November cloudy in our area, but we're hoping for the best.
Good, good. And let's hope for the best for this week, Armand, because a lot happening this week, isn't it? I mean, you know, we had the Venus-Pluto aspect last week, and this is the week of the big Mars-Pluto conjunction. So we're going to be talking about that. Plus, Venus is moving into Gemini. And to end the week, we've got a pretty intense full moon in Scorpio. So what are your thoughts, Armand? And let's be a little optimistic, yeah.
Well, okay, so Venus in Gemini is nice. It has a nice, flirty, sociable type of energy. Keep things light, make things sort of playful. You know, that's good. But the second half of April, you know, we said during the first half of April, it's a little bit slow and watery, but the second half is gonna take off fast, and here we are. I think that all of life is going to be very energized by this stuff. And Mars conjunct Pluto right before the Scorpio full moon.
Yeah, I think our faces say it all. So let's start with, you know, the nice flirty Venus in Gemini that you mentioned. I think that's a good start because Venus in Gemini is wonderful for friendships, isn't it? It really has that very sociable aspect. And it's also great if you just want to go out and make new friends, you know, which for us in kind of the Northern Hemisphere, we're coming to spring and summer. And so it is a time of kind of opening up and being expansive. Now, just to warn people, it is sextile Chiron in Aries. So just to be aware of that we mightn't feel the Venus and Gemini effect immediately because of the sextile to Chiron. So there may be some old issues to do with friendships or groups or whatever that we need to resolve first. Now, we then go to Mars is sextile Jupiter in Scorpio. So again, there's a little bit of expansion in the middle of the week. And of course, on Thursday, we've got the two things. We've got Mercury square Saturn, and then we've got the Mars-Pluto. So what do you think about that?
Yeah, Mercury square Saturn with the moon in Virgo. First of all, issues that came up before Mercury's retrograde when he hit Saturn going direct, and then he retrograded back. So we can go back to sometime in March. Some of those issues, some of those conversations that have been sort of unresolved since then might actually get resolved. And with the moon in Virgo, we're probably willing to sort of sit down and work at it. But, you know, definitely could be time for a serious conversation or perhaps resuming a serious conversation.
Yes, that's a really good point. And I think, you know, we've already had it. So it's great when I think when these transits happen a third time, you know, there's a resolution. So there's finally a completion and then we can move on. But of course, this Mars-Pluto conjunction in Capricorn, and I think whenever we're talking about Mars and Pluto, there is the potential for volatility, even though it's in an Earth sign. But I always think of it like a volcano, where there's the rumbling, the rumbling, the rumbling, and depending where it lands in the composite chart in terms of relationships, issues that maybe have rumbled for a while and we've actually dealt with the rumblings, then may not be explosive. But if there are issues which we've sat on in relationships and we haven't really addressed, then this could be when there could be a little bit of a volcanic eruption potentially.
I don't think little bit and volcanic eruption belong in the same sentence, Margaret. But I understand that you're trying not to freak people out, and I entirely agree with you. It very much focused energy, and I would say a good strategy is if you have work types of things to do or other areas of life where you can really focus in, target, and devote yourself, especially in the second half of the week. At least that will take some of the pressure off of relationships so that you don't necessarily blow up at your partner because there's all this volatile energy. If you blow up at your partner, it'll be because there are unresolved issues that need to come out. And the Scorpio full moon will undoubtedly just keep that same energy rocking and rolling all the way through the weekend.
And always, of course, with Plutonian and Scorpionic energy, it's also about passion, and it depends where the passion is channeled. So, you know, in a relationship, it's really worth thinking, first of all, for individuals to think about, what do I really feel passionate about? Is there a channel, as you mentioned? And then the other thing is within relationships to really find ways to express that passion together. And I think that's also a cultural thing, because I know here in Ireland, we sometimes struggle with being openly passionate, whereas, you know, Italian, Spanish culture are much more open. So I think there is that kind of safety valve, that way of expressing things. So I think definitely towards the end of the week, really to find some means of channeling that very powerful energy, because it could also come out as control. So to be aware of things like jealousy, of control, of obsessiveness, all of those kind of very Plutonian, again, Scorpionic energies that when they're not expressed in an expansive way can come out in a very limited, controlling way.
Indeed. And the other thing to always watch out when it comes to that Scorpionic stuff is it's the sort of, well, being volcanic, it comes from deep down. And so, you know, you could have an issue with your partner and it might be about, you know, you left the toothpaste out and I told you not to. But it seems so much more important because it reminds you of every other time that you weren't heard in relationship. It reminds you of every other time that somebody ignored your wishes. And so, you know, you wind up just jumping up there and it's like, you know, it's the end of the world because, you know, it's sort of the last straw or something like that, that it just pulls up all these other older feelings, you know, going back to the time when your parents didn't hear you when you were a little kid and you said, you know, all of those types of things come up with it. You know, to be, in a sense, thrown out in process or thrown up in process. But of course, if you don't, you don't want to aim that at your partner who's just a little bit of a fool for leaving the toothpaste on the sink.
That's such a good point, Armand. And maybe, you know, between now and then to really maybe spend the time to even make a list of resentments or things that are going on. And then maybe, you know, really, as you say, connect them up to past events and childhood events and really deal with that. What is the underlying issue here, so that when the transits come along, we don't have that bucket full of stuff that's going to come churning up.
And on a hopeful note, after the Scorpio full moon, the moon will go into Sagittarius, where we can have greater appreciation for Venus in Gemini, and May is not quite so turbulent as the second half of April has been.
That's so good to know. We look forward to seeing your blog on Venus in Gemini on our website as well.
It should be there on Monday.
Armand. Wonderful. Thanks so much, and see you next week, Armand.
Bye-bye, Margaret.
Bye-bye.